Hey everybody. So today I'm going to be talking about something completely different, talking about a little bit more again about my personal journey, but I'm going to be relating it to gay men and connection and sex addiction and some of these topics that really plague the gay community. So I'm going to get real with you guys and explore some of these topics. So first and foremost, I wanted to just bring forth. I've made it pretty public. I'm doing some of this work around codependency, some of this stuff around connection, learning how to attract, love, these sorts of things. So what I've done is I've been putting myself back into the dating pool, and both on Tinder and on Scruff. And for people who don't know what those are, so Tinder's more like the Christian mingle of the gay world, whereas Scruff is more like the Tinder of the straight world. It's more for sex hookups, whereas Tinder's more for looking for a relationship or whatnot. So, I've actually really been brought back because I hadn't been on Scruff for a long time, like years. And going back on Scruff, just even in the last 3 weeks, a whole bunch of stuff has been brought up inside of me, and I wanted to share this with you guys because I think there's a ton of value in this, and it can give you guys a ton of insight into your process and what you're actually seeking for outside yourself on these apps. Okay, so what I've noticed is going back into these apps is it's the same people looking for the same things, and it's a real struggle for me. Like I want to actually speak to the small percentage of gay men in the community that are more monogamous minded people, and by that I mean people that they're yearning for something more than just a quick fuck. They're yearning for people to connect with. They're yearning for sensuality, not necessarily sex. They're yearning for intimacy, vulnerability, conversations, these sorts of things that gay men really are yearning for, but they're not sure how to communicate that, how to bring that forward. So I'll first start off by just telling you guys a bit about my journey. So I dated a guy for about 8 years when I first came out, and halfway through that dating him into our 4th year, we decided to open up our relationship, and it became almost, for me, I didn't know how to have emotions and sex in the same conversation, in the same moment. And it felt very yucky for me because I think a lot of it, looking back, was around self-worth. I didn't feel worthy to actually feel loved intimately by somebody, and it was just about sex. So we opened up the relationship. We went into this 4-year period where we just were having sex with a lot of people. I wouldn't say I was addicted to sex, but I would say that I was seeking for things outside myself that I wasn't meeting for myself, didn't know how to meet for myself. And this is very prevalent in the gay community because my theory is gay people, we grow up feeling like we don't belong. Okay, it's an innate experience that we have because we're different than other people. So we grow up feeling like we don't belong. We hear messages that we are disgusting, we are not good, we're immoral, we're all these other things. So we start to internalize these messages, and it's a very traumatizing experience to be part of something, and then you start to evolve and you start to feel a different authenticity than everybody else, and you're not quite sure how to step into that authenticity. So we hold back our truth, and we silence ourselves, and we start to become unhappy because we're trying to be something that we're not. So this is internalized shame. This is what we're internalizing. We're internalizing the message that we're not good enough. So what ends up happening when we feel this way is we feel a tendency to wear masks because we don't want to show our authenticity, because we're scared of being judged, or we're scared of not fitting in, or whatever that might be. So in this process of wearing masks, we have a really hard time connecting with people in an intimate way, in a vulnerable way, which is really what human connection is meant to be, right? It's one thing to converse intellectually with somebody, but it's another thing to actually connect heart to heart. And in my experience, I think this is what a lot of gay men are yearning for. And they're just not quite sure how to do that. So one of the biggest things that's important to understand about this journey is that we will find ways to meet our needs for connection, but on different levels, right? You have the physical, you have the emotional, you have the mental, you have the spiritual. I mean, we can connect with another being on all four of these levels. But when we're feeling shame and we're feeling not good enough, what we tend to do is we tend to only engage with people on a level that we feel safe doing so, and that is going to be in the physical level. So with gay men, I tend to see a lot of gay men seeking this connection, this intimacy, this vulnerability in the physical way, and that's just not enough. So they become compulsive in this one area because the other three area needs aren't being met. This is how we develop sex addiction, right? And this is how we develop compulsive tendencies towards wanting to have sex. And the intention behind sex is about getting our needs met for connection and escapism, right? But the issue with that is we're compensating in one area because three other areas are not being met. So throughout this process, we need to learn how to connect with people in other ways. And this is something that I am really, to be honest, I've always struggled with this in my life. I went through a period up till about 25 where I was only accessing the physical chamber. The other three chambers weren't activated in my being yet. I didn't know how to. I didn't feel safe. I wasn't sure how to actually have intimacy, to be honest. And I find now, going back into this dating pool, what this is doing for me is it's bringing up all this old stuff. So I just had a period in the last 2 weeks where I was trying to put myself out there and I was trying to meet these physical needs. And these men that I were attracting were like fuckboys in a sense. Like they were guys that were just looking for sex. They weren't looking for connection in any other ways. And it was so unfulfilling for me. It was because what I've done is I've really opened up these other three chambers. I'm literally accessing my being through these three chambers, and I'm actually maybe even neglecting physical to a sense because I feel like I've swung to the other side of the pendulum. So what I'm trying to do right now is like bring more balance into the physical as well. But what I've realized is I actually cannot enjoy sex without some form of intimacy, emotional connection, conversing and learning about the person. And I've gone through a period in the last few weeks where I felt really alone in that because I'm like, I was feeling like something was wrong with me because here I am on these apps and it seems like everybody is just okay with accessing just the physical. But it took me a moment. I had a session with my coach last night and she was reflecting a lot of these things back to me, that it's not a problem with me, it's a problem with society, it's a problem with the gay community. And I potentially could be somebody that could bring people into their truth and help them step into their authenticity, because this is the reason why people are not connecting with other people. They're afraid. They don't know how to. So when you think about sex addiction or any type of addiction, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. Okay, sobriety is simply saying I'm not going to drink. But what do you do when you don't drink? What's the intention behind why you were drinking in the first place? What was your desires? What desires were not being met? And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, it's connection. We are yearning for connection because we are beings who seek belonging. We seek acceptance. We seek to love and be loved. We're social creatures. It's wired into our biology. We cannot change that. So what we try to do is we try to change our environment. We try and change our mindsets. We try and change these things, but that doesn't change your biological hardwire telling you that you need connection. Okay, so I'm conjuring up a bunch of cool ideas right now, and I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop a course that is going to teach gay men how to step into their authenticity, because I feel like this is such an epidemic in our culture. And I think if you're not escaping or trying to find connection through sex, you're escaping and trying to find connection through drugs, alcohol. Like when people are intoxicated and I'm at a party and I'm sober, people just, they gravitate towards me and they want to connect with me so badly. And then when I wouldn't know this, but when they're sober, then that's inhibited more. So people use alcohol to connect because it allows them to lower their fear of judgment or rejection, and they're allowed to just bring themselves into their authenticity. So when you're drunk, you're actually stepping into your authenticity, but you're doing it under the influence of something that actually isn't your truth. Okay, there's a part of your truth in that experience, but it isn't your truth because your truth is being blocked by fear. And just because you unblock it with drugs and alcohol doesn't mean that it is your truth per se. Okay? So anyway, so I'm going to be developing something, because it's literally like this has been going on in my being for the last few months. Something I'm meant to connect with the gay community in some way, because this has been a big struggle for me. I felt very isolated and alone in the gay community, and you know what, at the end of the day, I know that I'm not. I know for a fact that I'm not, because I see people, they want connection so bad and they're just not quite sure how to have it. So what we need to do is we need to actually develop worth. We need to develop that mechanism of I am good enough, and disintegrate this I am not good enough message that we've internalized. And you know, it's funny, because some of you might be watching this right now thinking, well, that's not me. Like, I know I'm good enough. I am, I am good enough. And that's great. Our consciousness can speak one thing, but our subconsciousness can be actually vibrating in a completely different energy. So what happens usually, and I've done this too, is when we don't feel like we belong, we're like, well, fuck that. I don't need to belong to that shithole group anyway, right? And we start to reject it. And then we think we're actually doing us a service, but we're not. We're really we're projecting our pain and our hurt and our disconnection outward. That's not creating connection for us. Just because we're disconnected doesn't mean that we don't need connection, right? So it's important to kind of go into your being and ask yourself, what was your experience like coming out? What was your experience like coming out? Ask yourself that, because for a lot of us, it's a very painful experience. It's a very traumatizing experience. We felt rejection. We felt like we weren't good enough. We felt shame. Well, what did we do with all that stuff, right? I know what I did. I got addicted to fucking coke and crack, and was drinking all the time and having sex all the time. And I was literally trying to do anything just to white knuckle my way through all of those shitty feelings that I was experiencing. So I want you to ask yourself, what did you do with all the feelings that came up for you when you were coming out? Because we really are, if you're watching this, we really are the cohort that's helping the younger versions of us come into their authenticity. So how can we do that, right? We can do that by modeling positive behavior. We can do that by modeling connection. And you start to see that as in the gay community as you get older, is you start to see these younger guys seeking out these older guys for connection, because they feel safer to reach out to these guys, because for the most part they've resolved some of their unconscious disconnection tendencies, right? And they're feeling like they're able to connect. So we need to be those people. We need to be those pioneers for these younger people that are coming in, and make it easier for these people to come into the gay community and feel connected, feel acceptance, and feel all the things that we're all yearning for. Because otherwise we turn to drugs, we turn to alcohol, we turn to sex, and we disconnect ourselves further from one another. Okay? It's a very, very powerful position to be in, we are, right? To be able to bring this message and deliver this message to a younger cohort of gay men. So anyway, that's my message for you guys today. And if you are one of those people that's struggling with, you're stuck between those two worlds of having sex and meeting those needs, and you're wanting to find connection, follow that, pursue that, open up to people that you feel safe to connect with, and start to find connection. And if you are one of those people that you need connection and you're feeling alone in that, you're not alone. I'm with you. There's a ton of other gay men that are with you in this process. And not everybody just wants to bang, right? There's people that are actually looking for connection and stimulation in other ways, not just the physical. So anyway, hopefully that opens up your guys' minds a little bit to, looking at things a little differently. And yeah. Anyway, drop me a message. Let me know what your experience has been like. You can do it publicly in a comment, or you can DM me and just let me know. Like, tell me what your experience has been like coming out. What are you looking for out of life? Are you looking for connection? Are you looking for just sex? Like, whatever. It's not a judgment. I'm not judging, and it's really just merely understanding the intention behind your behaviors and how you can meet your needs to be happy. If you're happy just having sex, great. for me, I know I wasn't. I needed connection. I needed something more. And as I step into that, I'm starting to find my authenticity and find my happiness. So, sending you guys all tons of love. Bye.